Hello, my name is Dr. Barbara Kleeb. This is the Polymath Perception Podcast. Today I'm meeting Tabea Hirzel, who is a Swiss polymath. Tabea is telling you how she structures her day to get most of her life as a polymath. If you are a curious person, you're interested in many things, but not just because you're bored and superficially. Your interest goes deep and is relating things with things that you already know. Your thinking is different. It's more like system thinking. If this is the case, you're probably a polymath. Polymath comes from many learnings. In this episode, you're getting to know how Tabea Hirzel is structuring her day. She is showing you what are the important things for a polymath to be successful in life, the value of money, and she's having a very holistic view of an overall life. I have been working with polymaths for over 4 years now and have had hundreds of deep conversations. If you don't listen to this episode, you will never know how you could structure your day in a way that is favorable for polymaths. Stay until the end of the episode because Tabea will tell us a story about a man who just had 2 weeks of school in his life, but could talk and write in several languages. Stay tuned.
It's such a joy meeting polymaths, playing music, writing books, painting pictures, creating, discovering the truth with open hands and presenting it bravely, like the jester to the king. In dark cellars of IT, polymaths relate and create, discover dimensions that have never been seen, innovate, invent, taking care of people's perspectives, because multiple perspectives is their thing. They're visionaries for a better world, relate what they found now to what they've experienced. They look for, they look near, they look everywhere, responsively related to the nature around and within. Once the curiosity of a polymath gets sparked, it's the beginning of a deep journey. When you're meeting a polymath, you're getting to know so many things. They have lived many lives within one lifetime, and they share their insights generously. It's so wonderful to be interviewing polymaths at the Polymath Perception Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Polymath Perception Podcast. Today I have the pleasure to introduce to you the wonderful Tabea Hirzel. She is a polymath and she is also a Swiss polymath, which I'm very happy about because before we have secretly talked Swiss German. Tabea, please tell us about what professions or what deep interests you have had or followed up in your life so far, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tabea. Yes. Hi, Barbara. Thank you for having me here. Well, professions, what I did so the last 20 years is international relations. That's also a little bit the environment in which I was born in. So it's not perhaps because of polymathy, but more because it was also tradition in some way. And I really love this activity, and I started doing it as an independent consultant. I still do that, but only for selected clients. And most of the day I exchange on projects. Well, it's also consultancy, but it's educational consultancy and project-based consultancy for public organizations, town halls. I work for UNESCO, and currently I work for the labor union. So here in my town, which is very comfortable because it's just 15 minutes walk away. I was always very much interested in languages. I started learning foreign languages when I was 3, and I was born into a family with 3 languages already. So it's like a kind of a leisure activity for me or a play or a puzzle game. And music. and horses. Horses and music, it's almost close to a mental disease. I think it's really something I could not live without. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you have focused on learning or integrating into your life?
One of the big things that always bothered me was when I was a little child, I already knew I want to be a horse trainer. And that was not possible because they told me I was too intelligent for being a horse trainer. Well, now I know what it means to be a horse trainer. I'm sure you cannot be intelligent enough to be a horse trainer, but well. And then there are 2-3 more things I thought that could be an alternative where I would really like to study or to learn. And it was always the same. I was excluded because I was too intelligent. So I learned very early that being intelligent is not positive. And I tried very hard to be normal. And throughout my life, I was lucky or sadly also in contact with many other people who were excluded for different reasons, for not being intelligent enough or not having this or that talent. And this really taught me that I think it's completely wrong to classify people in hierarchies of intelligence. I think that's the worst thing you can do, and especially as a polymath. I mean, we have this ability that often we are not even aware of that. You think, and this can be really offending other people, like you say, oh, that's easy. I said that very often, that's easy, but it's not easy for anybody else. It's easy for you. And I learned that because there are things that are very difficult for me, and others told me, oh, but that's easy. So to grow this sensitivity that what is easy for you is usually not easy for others, not only in the case of a polymath, in the case of anybody. And also I see a lot of hype now on internet that they search for polymaths for certain job occupations. I think that's a big mistake, at least a mistake from the polymath perspective. Nobody should actually grow and learn for job occupations. You should learn in the frame of your identity to become a more complete person, to be happy and to develop your skills and what you like, and also train what you dislike to be more balanced, but not to say I want to be an architect because now everybody needs an architect and they are very well paid, and then it was the engineer and now it's the IT developer. But I think every 10 years there is a job position which is really announced on internet, like everybody should learn that. Here in Spain, I live in Spain, they say we need a lot of AI specialists. I'm sure when all these young people are trained in AI, they will need something different. I have always seen this kind of development. So focus on what you really, really want to do and search for meaningful activities. And one big thing is really the struggle many polymaths have, that they can either work in something they hate or something that makes money, or usually they have to work in something that doesn't make money, but they can do what they like. And this is a gap we have to find solutions for, because money matters. I mean, it's not all about finding your peace, painting beautiful images and these kind of things. And when you are dead 200 years later, you will be famous, like Van Gogh or so.
Yes.
We need a stable life and have families and all these kind of things. And the key to that is I look always, where are we equal? And I think what makes us equal is time. We have all the same time. Polymath and non-polymath, we have 24 hours per day. Perhaps our lifespan is not the same, but what you do in a day defines who you are. And you should get power over that you decided, and not only a job. We have still a lot of presentialism here in Spain, like it doesn't matter what you do on your job, as long as you do two extra hours, then I know you are a loyal slave and I'm happy as your boss. Try not to do that. Try not to do that. I know sometimes it's really hard, but that is something that really kills a polymath. Yeah. I can tell you a little bit what I do, so like a daily routine, if you want.
Yes. So how do you put all your interests in a day time, and how do you organize yourself? I think that's hard for polymaths.
Yeah,
Or for
first of
some.
all, do not try to put all your interests in a daytime. A good way is also, I have many interests which I delegate in some way, in the sense of I search for friends who dig very deep, deep, deep into the topic. And there are times when I can also join up and dig deeper, but I do not do that not even on an annual basis, perhaps like on a project basis, like 2 years later, we work together and then you leave it and so on. But I think everybody has some things that really define what you are and who you are. And in my case, I have like a daily routine. There are things I do really every day. I get up and play the piano, and I do that like uh, I'm not like a pianist, it's not like another expertise or profession. I'm not a great piano player. I do it like a kind of meditation and a hand exercise, because I write a lot on the computer and I had real issues with my hand due to that, and with the piano playing I could recover that. So I do that every day. And I can combine it somehow also as a kind of spiritual activity through improvisation or playing certain musics that lifts me up. I have also training in music therapy, and I play many pieces I use later in education. So I teach them, for example, for an English class, I compound the music for a song and these kind of things. So this is how I can combine also that with the daily basis. And what I do also every day is like a core network, the time for my family. Yeah, some people live alone and have friendship and have neighbors. Other people are living with equal age people or with elderly people. It doesn't matter, but you will have a kind of core relationships which are important in your life, and you should really care for them. So I eat with my children every day. I have usually a morning coffee with my husband. That sounds really weird, but we had to start really integrating that, because there were weeks I didn't see him. There were people in our town who saw him more often than I. So we started doing that like a kind of routine. And I really enjoy that. I think for me it's very important. Then you also need practical skills and exercise. Like, for example, when you have a lot of knowledge, you cannot, there are things you learn once, you understand them, and you will never forget them, at least if your memory is more or less good. But there are other skills like languages, or like also mental math, calculation, certain skills you need to train. If not, you lose them.
Yes.
I also dedicate like half an hour to an hour every day to speak foreign languages. I cannot integrate into my daily life because I'm lucky I can speak some languages every day with friends, with on the job, but there are other languages you cannot speak.
What languages do you speak?
Yeah, that depends on the level, of course, but I'm fluent in English, Spanish, French, Italian, German, Swiss German, the most beautiful language in the world. And then I have a beginner's level in Russian and Chinese. I understand a little bit Dutch. I can converse in Portuguese, but I have to prepare for it. So these are different levels of knowledge. And I study also that languages like Ancient Greek and Hebrew to read texts. I'm currently reading a lot of Sumerian texts, so I do not speak the language, but I'm digging into this grammar and these kind of things. And these are things you have to practice because you will forget that. Also, the languages I speak, sometimes I just take the time to review grammar issues because languages also change. That's actually a habit in my family. On the eating table, when we have lunch together and somebody makes a mistake, and usually always there's somebody who makes a grammar mistake in the family talk, the other one would say, oh, it's not like that. And then we go and run for the dictionary and check it. It's a little bit weird, I know. And
So
yeah, then sports. I go 3 times a week horse riding because I have my own horses. And they are also like my church. I do not go to church, but I care for the horses. And for me, it's a very spiritual thing. And I do sometimes martial art, but I actually do that also on a daily basis, but not the fighting. That is something I did long time, like 20 years, but now I do Qigong and inner Tai Chi, so more this kind of breathing techniques and these kind of things. And and creative art. Whenever I have an excuse, I do some design. That can be something very boring in your administrative job or whatever. And I just take the excuse and make like a logo for something or whatever. I really like doing like a little bit of drawing and drawing by hand, because that's also a skill you lose if you do not use it. And last but not least, I would say community engagement is also very important. So on one side, you have to work for money. That's project-based in my case. Money is important to be engaged with the community. That will be a whole topic. But the other thing is work with a unique expertise. It must not be for money. It can be, it must not be, but something where you are the best. Like, they would never ask anybody else because they know you are the best in that question. That is also something I would recommend any polymath, because any polymath has this kind of unique skill. I believe everybody has, but polymath in special. In my case, it's especially coaching and teaching. I usually teach things nobody else teaches. So I would not teach English classes, but I teach people how to learn Indian English or culturally very difficult approaches, these kind of things. And then community engagement is also work on your reputation. Dedicate some time on doing something that makes you visible and gives you a good reputation in the society. I know people do not like to speak these things out, but at the end it comes down to that. There are people who do it and people who forget about it. And if you do not care for how others see you, first of all, you have no correction. You do not know if what you do is just because you like it or because the society needs it. And also because you have to give you a value. Otherwise, you will never get paid really what you are worth for. And what I do is usually I publish articles. I do that on a regular basis, not as often as I wanted, but I'm getting a little bit more skilled in that, and I'm doing it more and more. And I collaborate. I have a scientist network, usually with scientists who work in different fields, but with similar questions. So I really love that. And work on your own theories. From my experience with other polymaths, everybody has a kind of theory, and work on that, make it better, test it out in your real life. That would be my recommendation.
I love that. And how do you plan your day?
I don't plan it. It's actually a routine. I do all the days the same thing. There are times, because of my international activity, I have to travel. At the moment, I don't have to do that so much, but before COVID, I had to travel relatively often to countries like far distant countries like China, Russia, Japan. And of course, you do not have the same environment, the same routines, but I have like little rituals in my day. I'm very fixed on that, like having a coffee or eating certain things at certain times or doing my meditations, and that gives like a kind of structure. I feel I need something like this kind of structure, and when I have that, I can do the rest. I can be very flexible. I have to say I plan everything tremendously. If I go on a Sunday trip with my family, I plan 2 weeks ahead. I have a map. I think the CIA does not plan so much an invasion of another country as I plan a Sunday trip with my kids. Some of this planning you can find online because they are really good plans. Since I test them out, I can say they work and they are really fun and I share them with others. But for some people that could be obsessive. And
maybe the CIA has found out about it and is now imitating it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We can go and look for those plans. Where can we find them?
I always use blog posts, so blogger.com, but I don't know. I do not have really a single place. I can send it in later to you. I'm on Linktree, and there are all my blogs. I have more than 50 blogs because I do many blogs by purpose, only for a project. But you can also go on learningfortech.nsdd.net. Yeah. This is our school. I have an online school, online platform. That is a project I'm working on for more than 15 years already. And
Nice.
there are most of my learning scenarios, because I make everything is converted into a learning scenario.
Nice.
Yeah, you think probably my poor kids. For me, life is like an adventure, you know. I'm like kind of treasure hunter for wisdom.
I love
And
that.
I really enjoy it. Yeah, we are still on a treasure hunt because I found an old Bible from my grandmother, and I did a little bit of fake news. I put a sheet inside and said it's an old letter. I really did a kind of reproduction of an old letter, and she found a treasure somewhere. And we are now like 5 years on treasure hunt, because each treasure we find leads you to the next, like in a good American movie, you know.
Super. So cool.
Yeah, and my home is also really it's also in that way. I mean, as I said, we have the horses because we have a little farm, not very big. We have like 10 hectares of land. Yesterday night, for example, I was making vegetable conserves until midnight because my husband came with a lot of vegetables. I actually only eat what we produce, so this is really cool. That's not my
Nice.
polymath, that's the one of my husband. And that connects us with the nature, but we also do a lot of trips into the nature. And yeah, it will also sound weird, but we have several labs. We have vines and we have olive trees and yeah, several plants. So we do our own wine, our own olive oil, and we do that in a professional way. So we have a lab, we have a laboratory for that. And during COVID, we started our own bio lab as well, because we started creating penicillin just in case. So these kind of things. And yeah, we created a whole learning plan for kitchen lab, because we discovered that actually kitchen is like a chemistry lab and it's so much fun. And yeah, we do our own soaps and cosmetics. So I mean, that's a paradise for polymath. And I do
Nice.
not have a music room, but I have the music instruments around all the house. So, and
So
also create symbolic places. That's also something very important, like online places where you can meet with people and yeah, just hang around, play. I think you need always time to play a little bit every day.
yes. Oh, nice.
Hi, that's my dog.
Is your husband also polymath?
My dog?
No, your
Oh,
husband.
no.
I don't know about your dog.
She's the boss, she thinks. So, what else can I tell you?
So, how many polymaths are in your family?
I don't know. Because that is the big question I'm working on. That's how I found you, because I didn't define myself as a polymath. I define myself as a problematic personality with high intelligence. And my colleagues at the job, they called me the general, or they thought I was suspect to be a KBG agent. I liked more the KBG agent than the general, but well, it's somehow true. But I didn't really understand myself as a polymath. And I started thinking that I had always this dream to have a kind of school for people who suffered what I suffered when I was younger. And it's not really a suffering like people hate you. It's a suffering like you feel so tremendously alone. You do not even feel human. It's very difficult to explain that, but you think you're somehow different. And I think there is nothing more terrible than not belonging, not being part of something. And
Yeah.
I think I'm quite balanced now and happy. And that's when I started thinking I would like to help others to find that way and not have to wait until I'm almost 50. And I wished somebody had the ability to help me when I was 14. And so I started really trying to find, and of course when you start you see Windows and Google are looking for polymaths and you say no, not really, yeah. And then you see who are polymaths, Leonardo da Vinci, and you say, oh, okay, I understand, making a lot of weapons is always good. um, But that's not who I am. And that's how I started. I'm still not sure if that is the right terminology. I'm not sure if there are different types of polymath. On my blog, the Polymathy Seculo 21, there I define it very, very precisely. Foremost, because I want to see the barriers, the limits, where somebody says, hey, I'm a polymath too, but I'm not in your group. Why? Something like that. To see where is the limit, and also different other divergences. I do not think that polymaths are an elite. I do not think that we are really better. We do certain things better. Actually, it took me very long to understand that I'm better in some things, because everything I'm better for me comes natural. I never studied at school. I know people, they are very intelligent, but as a kind of coping strategy, because they had a very bad home. And so studying was like their safe place, and they studied all the time. I always was a runaway girl. I was never at school. I was always in the forest, and the forest taught me many things. And then I went, had a math exam, and was the best. And of course, everybody gets angry because they say she's always only doing everything else, and on top of that, she's good. And this is something I didn't realize, that this is something special that you should value. But I saw everything I was not good at, and others are very good at. So I think everybody is good at something. And so this is, I do not know what the question was.
Okay. But I think envy is very hard, and putting others out of belonging is kind of like a traditional death penalty for, if you look in the animal kingdom.
But
When,
the motivation is the same. Those who are envious do it for the same reason. They feel excluded because they cannot reach that. And, we live in a world where intelligence is ordered in a hierarchy and theoretically associated with success and money in the world. When you grow older, that's not true. Most people who have a lot, really, really a lot of money, are quite stupid people, without trying to offend anybody, but they are not brilliant, not even a little bit. Think of the boss of Alibaba, for example. He even says that he's not very bright. And he doesn't care, because that's not what you need to triumph in our world. But when you are young, you really get this kind, especially in Central Europe, that's the image we have. Work hard, be obedient, and make good scores at school, and you will have success. And actually it's the opposite. But because we are taught that if somebody, without working hard, without studying, is good at school, the other things, that is not fair. And I will never achieve that. I'm excluded. Or now she is discussing with the teacher something I cannot understand. And then comes the moment when Tabea asks something very simple, like 1 and 1, why is it 2? Can it not be 3? And everybody else thinks, oh, she's so stupid, finally. And of course, that's so natural, because we all feel excluded sometimes.
yes.
And understanding that helps me also integrate better with so-called neuronormals. I hate that word, because I have never met a normal person, actually. I mean, that's a compliment.
I wonder who's normal.
Yes. The normal is not being normal.
I sometimes ask myself, am I so deep in my niche, or are there no neurotypical persons? Because who is neurotypical?
So I found with my oldest son, for example, we had also these issues when he was already 6, and then with 8, it was unbearable. And it was the same procedure, like when I was at this age, different country, different time, same procedure. Oh, let him switch 2 classes. I said, hey, that's a democratic country. I pay school with taxes. He has a right to education. Yeah. And it was always this message, if you're better in school, you will get along on your own. And that's not true. Polymaths need the same care for education than non-polymaths. Today I worked on all the dangers it has to be a polymath and not to get the right education. Because you do a lot of mental fallacies. You start a lot of conspiration theories, and it goes far beyond speculation, which is very healthy and inspirational. But you really end up in some weird ideas, and not because they are weird, but because you do not have a solid language to communicate with the right people in the fields and to check if you're right or wrong, because you have not the methodology, because you were never taught it. And at the end, we have only 24 hours. And if you take 20, 30 years in realizing there is a way to develop as a polymath, it can be late for you.
Yeah,
And
that was so interesting. Thank you so much, Tabea. Okay.
never mind.
Thank you so much for joining the Polymath Perception Podcast with me and Tabea Hirzel, where she told you about the habits that she uses instead of planning to make her life as a polymath better. I have been working with many polymaths and have had hundreds of conversations at the networking coffee and one-to-one. If you consider working with me, please go to the show notes, look for the Calendly link and click it, and you can have a conversation with me for half an hour. Go to the show notes, find the Calendly link, book a slot on my automatic agenda, and I will see you soon. And now, listen to Tabea's story of a man who talked and wrote several languages after just 2 weeks of school.
And now we're getting to Tabea's story of a man who was in school for only 2 weeks. Can you please tell about this?
Oh yeah, that is really a wonderful encounter. In my current project for the labor union, there are coming many peoples to find a job, especially also immigrants, because according to the Spanish laws, if you have a course you learn and then you can later get a job, you can stay in the country. It's kind of like attachment due to work and education. And so I had to fill in a form and ask him all the questions. Where are you coming from? He was from Mauritania. And he told me in a fluid Spanish, by the way, he told me that what he did and so on. And I asked him if he has had some studies, because many people don't have any studies, especially women. And I said, yes, 2 weeks. And I was not really sure, and asked him again, 2 weeks or 2 years? And said, no, 2 weeks. You know, my country is very conflictive. It's not easy to go to school. And I said, yeah, I understand that, but still, I'm not really sure. I do not understand how you can go 2 weeks to school. And when we filled out the form, I saw he was calling with a friend, and his language is Arab. Well, his language is an African language. I do not remember how it's called. I have to look up. Very interesting. And then he spoke Arab with a colleague. And he wrote also his notes in Arab. But when I told him things in Spanish, he took the notes in Spanish. And at first, I was not sure if in his country they speak Arab or English or French. And I asked him a few things in French, because most people come from Senegal who come to us. And he answered me a few sentences in French, telling that he's not very good at French. I said, how do you do that? You have only 2 weeks of education. And we are struggling with kids who have went to school 12 years and do not speak any of the languages, not even our own language, in a proper way. And this taught me so much about intelligence and education. I had other experiences like that. There are people without education, and if they have a proper interest and motivation, and if they have even no educational background, really known, they can learn it very quickly. And yeah, this is really surprising. It's something that I'm wondering about and I'm learning about, because people are a miracle and we do know very little about how the mind works, how learning works. Yeah.
So the question that I would like everybody to take away is school necessary for learning?
Or what type of school? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what type of learning? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tabea. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Barbara.